Hey all, and welcome to a new video. This is a very special one because it's about Git and how to use Git with Macs. Well, it's about Git in general, but since we are Macs users and Macs programmers, we're going to see how to use Git with Macs. First of all, sorry about the sound quality. I'm recording with the MacBook microphone, so it's probably not optimal. So I'm pretty excited about this video because I started to learn Git just really a few days ago, and it's actually mind-blowing how this whole thing works. So I'm really glad to be able to show this to you people. Now, first of all, what is Git actually? Well, Git is a version control system, so it tracks changes in any set of files. Usually coordinating work among programmers, collaborating developing source code during software development, but can also be used in a non-collaborative way. In fact, today we are going to see it used on a local level. So without using GitHub, for example, without uploading our work into the internet, but simply keeping it local to our system. And this is already very powerful, because it allows us to go back and forth between different versions of our work. So let's see in practice how this works. First of all, we need to download Git. So how to download Git? I have no idea because I downloaded it a lot of time ago. So I'm just going to Google it, download Git. And I'm going to do that for Mac OS because I don't have a Windows here. So I'm only going to explain how this works for Mac, but for Windows should be pretty straightforward as well. So you just download it and install it. You follow the instructions to install it, should be pretty straightforward. You can download it here from gitsgm.com downloads. And once you have it on your computer, it's going to be there. So if we check then something like Git version or something, let's see if this works. Yeah, exactly. If you have Git installed correctly in your computer, you should be able to do something like this, and it should return you a version of your Git that you just installed. By the way, this is the terminal, which on Mac can be accessed by simply looking for it. Terminal, that's it. And on Windows, this is going to be the command prompt. And some commands are going to be different on Windows, so you have to check online what's the correspective Mac version. For example, on Mac we can use ls to show the content of a directory, while in Windows I think it's going to be dir, something like that. So you have to check always what's the corresponding command on Windows. We're going only to do Mac OS today. So okay, cool. So now that we got Git installed on our system, let's give it a go. So now I am on my desktop, right? I just changed the directory with this cd command. And I'm going to tell you what commands I use in the terminal here, which are not Git commands, but I'm not going to go in depth into those ones because I'm not an expert, and this tutorial is actually about Git, so not about the terminal in general. But it's pretty straightforward stuff. So I have created a folder which is called Git Toot on my desktop. So now I'm just going to go into this folder, Git Toot, and now I am inside this folder, right? And this folder, as you can see here on the Finder, is actually empty. So I'm going to create now a Max patch and save it inside that folder. So I'm going to call it Git Toot Max. Git Toot Patcher. All right, and I'm going to save it inside that folder. And I'm going to write here a message, and I'm going to write inside hello world, something like that. Just that, and I'm going to save it. And this could be whatever. This could be your extremely complicated Max patch, could be the work you are working on. It can be whatever patcher, can be a bunch of patchers. In fact, let's actually add also another file. And I'm going to add actually a JS file. Let's add another JavaScript file just to show that we can add multiple files. And I'm going to call it git.js, git_js, and then this is a JS file. And I'm going to say, for example, autowatch =1 here, and I'm going to save it as well inside this folder, just to have a couple of files. Cool. I'm going to save that. And I'm going to close that patch. And now, if I reopen it, we have this file, we have this JavaScript file inside here, which is going to open on my Visual Studio Code, and so on. Cool. Now, let's say that we want to modify our work, but we would like to keep a copy of what we have done so far. So we go in our terminal, we are inside that folder, and we go with git init. So this command will make git create a folder. Inside this folder, which is a folder which has a dot on top. So you will not see it if you don't see hidden files in your system. So you have to go to the option in your system to see hidden files, which on the Mac you can do by pressing Command, Shift, and dot. So if I press it, it will hide and show hidden files. So cool. Now I can see that there is this folder called Git inside here. So now we can check the status of our Git directory. So now we can check the status of our Git tree. So why am I saying tree? Because Git works sort like as a tree. So you have to imagine that we are just starting our tree here, and then we will add some more stuff, and we are going to add some node to this tree. And then we could even branch from this tree and go in another direction, and then go on here in another direction, and so on. We're going to see all of that. But for the moment, just think that we're going to check what the status of our tree now. So if I write git status here in the terminal, you will see that it says a bunch of stuff. So we are on branch main, which is the main working tree. As we say, this is, if you imagine that this is a tree, main is kind of the main trunk, right? And there are no commits yet. And we have untracked files, which are the files that we just created, the JS file and the patcher file, the maxpath. Nothing added to commit, but untracked files present. Use git add to tracks. It even tells us what we have to do to add these files to our tree of versions. And as you can see here, I got a bunch of useful git commands which I've learned recently. So, in fact, if we want to add those files to our tree, to our working tree, we can say git add, and then we can say the name of the file. So git toot js.js, and then git add, and then the other file git toot patcher. And if we press tab, it will autocomplete the name for us. So cool. Now I added both those files. So if I go now with git status, you can see that we're still on branch main, no commits yet, but there are some changes to be committed. So what we have done is that we say to Git that we modified those files, because we just created them, and we would like to now save them as their current version in our working tree. So then we can access again this version if we need to. Good. So now we staged those files, which means we basically said to Git that we modified these files, and Git recorded the state of these files at the moment in which we added them. In fact, if we go inside the hidden Git folder now, and we go into this objects folder, we can see that there are now a bunch of folders that were not there before. In fact, it created a couple of those folders which are called objects in Git, and this contains some hashes. So these hashes, these text files basically represent the files that we just added into Git. So for example, if we would like to see what's inside those files, we can use this command, which is git cat file and then p, the option p, and then we have to write the hash of these files. Now the hash of the file of these objects will be the first two letters, the first two symbols here that are the name of the folder, followed by some symbols which are part of the hash. It doesn't have to be all the symbols of the hash, just a bunch of them to distinguish it from the other hashes. So if we say 1F78739, you can see that it just showed us the content of our JavaScript file. So we know now that this is the content of the JavaScript file. This is exactly our JavaScript file, which has been saved by Git in this kind of compressed form as a hash. Now let's check what's inside the other one. So git cat file p and then 0247. I'm just reading from here, from the hash plus, so the name of the folder plus the hash, fb and so on. And what's that? This is our max patcher. All right, you can see that it has the JavaScript object and then this box, message box object, and this is exactly how a max patch looks when if we will open it into a text editor. Like for example, if I open this with some text editor, like for example, whatever, we can open this with text edit. You will see that this is exactly the content of the max patch, right? That's how a max patch looks. And then Max is responsible to transform these into graphical objects and stuff. So cool. Our files are now stored by Git in this objects folder as hashes. Pretty cool. But this is still not written into stone, because if we modify those files and we add them again to Git, we cannot go back to their previous version. So we need now to commit those files in order to kind of write them into stone. So let's again do a git status just to check the current status. Okay, and that's it. So now I want to commit, which means I'm going to write these files forever inside my git tree. So I write git commit and then m for a message, and then I write a message into quote. So I can write, for example, my first commit, and then I close the quotes. Oh, and sometimes I get this kind of bug that it doesn't think I input a quote, but I actually did, so I just input again a quote, and now it works. So now you can see that it tells us that we made a root commit, which is basically the first commit inside our tree. And it shows us the message, which I just wrote, my first commit. And then it says 2 files saying changed, or 84 insertions, which I guess are the lines in the files. And then we got the 2 files. Pretty cool. Now, if we want to just check all the operations we did so far, we made so far, we can use a command called git log. Git log, it will tell us that we made a commit. There is the author, which is Federico Foderaro at info.federicofederaro.com. It even knows my data because I made a git config file, but don't worry about that. And then it says that we got a git commit. We can even show this log in kind of a more streamlined version by using a couple of options like one line, graph, decorate, and all. Just trust me on this one. By the way, I will share this file on this video description, just so you can have all those comments under your eyes. Good. And now it will show us very concisely what we just did. We did a commit, and we wrote a message, my first commit. And then this is actually the hash of the commit. So if we go now inside these objects folder again in the Git folder, we can see that there is a new folder called EF, and it is followed by this hash, which is 54AB7 and so on, which is exactly this hash here. So we can refer always to that state of our work at that point by referring to this hash. Okay, then it says the head is on main and is on my first commit. So the head is simply where we are inside this working tree. So we only made one commit until now, and this is the root commit, and the head, it means, is pointing here to that commit. This is simply where we are at the moment in our working tree. And since we have only one commit, we are at that commit. Okay, so this is going to be pretty cool. I open now my patch and I modify it because I want to go on with my work. But this version that I had until now is saved forever. Until you don't delete this Git folder. So that's amazing, because now I can just modify some stuff here and say, wow, this is a pretty cool patch, I guess. So I saved that here, I saved that, I even open my JS file and I write a new comment like, oh, wow, pretty cool JS stuff here, or something. And cool, I saved that. I go inside the terminal, I can actually close the patch. Go inside the terminal and I go with the git status, and it tells me that those files are now different from the files we have in our commit. We can even check those differences by using a git diff command. Let's just try to use it without any options. And it will tell us the differences between the staged files and a stage, or files that are commit and files that are still not staged. So we didn't do any add command until now, and the files that are already committed or staged. So as you can see, it tells us that we have a new line here, which is pretty cool JS stuff here, and then with the JS file, and then with the patcher we added a new message box, so it tells us that we have these differences in our max patcher files. So pretty cool. Now let's go stage those files by adding them into our cached files, so our staged files. And instead of adding them by name like we did before, we can just do a git add dot. So now they are all added. If we check with git status, we can see that they are added but not yet committed. So let's go on and commit those files. So git commit and message, and then we can write our message. Now the commit messages should be meaningful, should be something that makes us remember what we did at that point. So for example, we can say added a new message box and some silly JS comment. Okay, so we know this is what we did at this point in time. Okay, so now this is committed. If we go using the command we used before, which is git log one line graph decorate all, we can see that now we have two commits. One is the first commit that we did before, and now head it's at the second commit, because every time we make a new commit, head is going to move to the latest commit. So added a new message box and silly JS commit. This is our commit on which head is now. Okay, cool. But let's now say that we want to go back to the previous commit, because we realized that what we did in our second commit was silly. We want to start back from our previous version, and this is actually the power of Git, because we have always the possibility to go back in time. So we do this git reset with the hard option, don't mind for the moment about the hard option, and then we write the hash of the commit to which we want to go back to. So 54AB7. And now head it's at that commit. If we do a log, we can see that the second commit disappeared, and head it's at that commit. And if we go now opening our max patcher, boom, you see that it's back as it was when we made the first commit. And if we go here, check the JS file, you can see that the comment is disappeared. So what devilry is that? Well, this is the power of Git. We have now the whole folder, the whole working directory in which we are, got taken back to the previous state in which it was when we made the first commit. Okay, but is the second commit then lost forever? Well, actually not, because if we do a git reset hard to the commit that we, to the hash of the second commit, let's see. It seems that it actually worked. We are back now with our second commit, and the head is now at that commit. If we go check our patcher, we can see that the message is back again. So our second commit was still saved. So that's pretty amazing, because now we have the possibility of modifying our patch and do all sort of crazy stuff, but always having the possibility of going back to our previous version. Now, I want to show you something even crazier. So I write now a new message and write, no, actually, let me just add a bunch of float numbers that don't do absolutely anything. Okay, and I save that, and then I check the Git status. And the JS file we didn't modify, so only the patcher file has been modified. So it tells us that we got a modified patch. Okay, cool. And now I say git branch, which means I'm going to go in a completely different branch of this tree, which will leave our main branch, our main trunk kind of untouched. And we will go on experimenting with this patch on a different branch. So let's give it a name to this branch, which I will call it wanting to experiment with float numbers or something, just to remember what this branch is going to be about. And I click enter. Oh, and I think I just discovered that a branch name cannot be more than a single word. Silly me, of course. So this should be something like float numbers. Okay, and now it's worked. Okay, gave me this weird bug with a quote. And okay, I made a bit of a mess, but let's actually clear our history. Okay, cool. So with a clear message, I just wrote clear. So now if we go with a git log one line graph decorate all, we can see that we have now two branches. One is called main and the other is called float numbers. Okay, but we are still on the main branch because head it's on main. So let's move ahead, so the point where we add to float numbers. In order to do that, we use this checkout message. So git checkout and then the name of our branch, which I guess doesn't need to be wrote inside quotes. So float numbers. And then it says switch to branch float numbers. Oh, and I think the name of the branch didn't need to be included into quotes. That was my error. Okay. When we created a branch. Cool. So if now we do again the log thing, we can see that now head is on float numbers. Before it was on main, now it's on float numbers. So I actually already experimented with the patch because we added the float numbers. In fact, if we go with the git status, we can see that the patcher is modified. So what I want to do is to add this, and then I want to commit, leaving a message. So added couple of float numbers. That's my commit message. And cool, that's it. If we now go with the git log thing, we can see that the pointer moved a bit forward because on main we are at the point in which we added a new message box and some Spirit.js comment, but now on float numbers we added these float numbers to the patch. Okay, so cool. If I now open the patch, we can see that we got a bunch of float numbers. And if I want to go back now to my main branch, because kind of the float numbers branch didn't really lead anywhere, I can do again with git checkout main, and now I am on branch main. If I open now this patch, you can see that the float numbers are gone. So on the main branch, I can then continue experimenting with my patch and do like something this main branch is really cool or something, and then saving that. And then I can do, you know what, instead of git add and then commit, I can also just do git commit with am option, which means add and then message. And then I can write my new commit message, so added a new message box, right? And then if I go to git status, we can see that nothing is, everything is committed. Now if I go with git log, you can see that it even makes us a little graph, which shows that on main, we are at a new message box. And then we have this other branch, which is float numbers, which is at the point which we added a couple of float numbers. So this is extremely cool. Because now we have the possibility to experiment with branches, experiment with different versions of the same patch, but always keeping track of what we did in the past. And you know what? If you want kind of a more graphical representation of all this, you can use this program which is called source tree. So if you download the source tree for your computer, you can then add an existing local repository. So I'm going to desktop, git tut, and you have to add the folder in which the git folder is inside. Would like to access file, yeah, of course. So if I now click here, you can see that it gives us a graphical representation of what we did with Git inside our folder. So we made our first commit, then we added a new message box and some silly JS comment, and it will even show us the single files with the modifications. Then we went into the new branch with the float number stuff, and then the main branch is still going on strong, and we added a new message box. And this is without even touching the GitHub stuff. So we could then upload all this stuff online and making then it available for other people to collaborate with us. But this is another topic for another video. For the moment, I just wanted to show you the power of Git versioning and how to use it locally, which is already great, gives you a great power. And I hope you liked this video. If you like, it would be really cool if you put a like to it and subscribe to the channel. So cool. If you have some comments about this video, some requests about information or anything, just let me know and I'll make another video about it if there is interest. Cool. See you soon. Have fun. Ciao.